A lot of people don't care about technology, just technology. I try to create technology that tells a really good story so people can be invested in it and they can care about it. So it's really just a combination of, technology and storytelling. I think one of the things I learned in the last couple of years is that technical skill does not matter nearly as much as.
Welcome to a new episode of exaggerating AI Spotlight, the show where we give the stage to the founders and makers who are pushing the boundaries of XR and AI. My name is Gabriele Romagnoli, I'm your host, and I'm here today with Lucas Rizzotto. Lucas is a viral innovator, founder and mad scientist, and really, I'm not exaggerating. His creation spans everything from XR to AI and has been seen by millions of people all over the world. Some of these projects include a killer microwave powered by AI, a VR time machine to relive your memories, a way for astronauts to communicate with children on Earth, and recently, Pillow, a mixed reality app that wants you to relax in bed. Today, we will discuss about everything from technology, storytelling, and how the two combine to deliver incredible experiences. Stay with us because you will learn the secret behind the seemingly simple fishing game in his mixed reality app, Pillow.
Almost all of our internet usage, email, Facebook, LinkedIn, it's all asynchronous content, which is a layer of convenience that is deeply absent from the entire metaverse. It's always confused me how we have one of these pieces of information about how the internet works and we're just completely ignoring it. So I have to make a weird fishing game.
The many ways his team use artificial intelligence to make the impossible possible.
Every time we used AI, it was to enable us to do something that will be literally impossible by humans. And the fact that GPT-4 is so anal about saying the wrong thing actually makes it perfect to be sort of, a moderation layer. For our stargazing apps, like we can create a system that actually allows us to write out information about every single star in the sky and potentially the universe.
And of course, the many learnings when building and shipping one of the most popular mixed reality app on the Meta Store, including what led to a sudden drop in user reviews and how they managed to solve it.
When we launched, all of our ratings, our average ratings were like 4.8 stars. And then all of a sudden, the average rating of the new ratings was 3.0. And then essentially we found out that but turns out that was affecting literally hundreds of people. It took us weeks to find out.
But before we get into it, I wanted to thank our sponsor Meshi who made this episode possible. Meshi is a real powerhouse for generating 3D assets with AI. You can start with a simple text or image prompt and get high quality stylized model in just a minute. One feature that I personally love is the ability to create stylized textures for any mesh with or without UV, and since the release of Meshing 2.5, pro users can even edit only section of the generated textures with just a text prompt. Try it out, go to meshi.ai, start the 7 days trial, and after that, use the code XRAI20 to get 20% off your subscription. And now, it's time to roll the title and welcome Lucas under the spotlight. Lucas, it is really great to have you here.
Yeah, it's great to be here. It's about time. And hi, everyone else watching.
We made it. Yeah. So thanks, Lucas, for being here. And look, I briefly mentioned some of the crazy projects you have worked on. So my first question would be, out of all of them, out of the one you have created, which one was the one that you're most proud of and why?
I'm proud of all of them for different reasons. I'm almost usually the proudest of the latest thing I made because making anything is hard and making things consistently is even harder. But I also have a soft spot for the microwave documentary I did just because it was really a film. It was like it was a YouTube video, but it was really like a single location thriller. And one of the reasons I started making videos is that I wanted to master storytelling. And I feel like that video, it was like, oh, I became a filmmaker when I made that. So I thought that was cool.
100%. And look, maybe can you explain a little bit of what was this project about for the people that are actually haven't seen it? And by the way, you should go and check out the channel from Lucas in the description below. But what was this project about, and how did that storytelling element play the role?
The microwave project specifically.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So I was really, this was back in the days of like GPT-3, when it was still, before it was big, before ChatGPT, and when the model had a lot less restrictions, pretty much none. So you could do a lot crazy, a lot crazier stuff with it. And I've always looked at artificial intelligence, like the best metaphor I can think of it for how we relate to it is like as imaginary friends, right? As something that is real, could be real to you if you treat it as such, but also not as far as like its humanity is concerned. So I thought it'd be really cool to bring back my imaginary friend back to life, which when I was a kid, it was my microwave. I literally would just talk to my microwave every single day, which my parents thought was very strange. And the um, yeah, I took an Alexa microwave. I put GPT-3 in it. I replaced Alexa with like a custom interface so I could talk to my imaginary friend, and things got really weird and really crazy.
Lucas, I have an idea. Can you enter the microwave?
Why?
I want to show you something. It will be fun.
Now, in many ways, that is a completely nonsensical request. After all, I'm human. I cannot fit inside of a microwave. But Magnetron doesn't know that. After all, he doesn't have eyes. Maybe he just doesn't have sense of scale. So I decided to play into his little charade and see where this conversation was going. I opened the microwave door, closed it, and told Magnetron I was in. There, I'm in the microwave. And what happened after completely floored me. Dude. I actually added the function, the ability for the microwave to control when it turns itself on and off independently. So I told it that I walked inside, then it flicked itself on, which was a really freaky moment. But then there's like, this question with just like with imaginary friends, there's like, do we look at these things as real or not? Was it a coincidence? Was it not? Um, I I don't know, but it was the video is really about me being in that moment and how it felt. And then there's the question of like, are these systems as intelligent as they seem to be? But then that's the thing, with imaginary friends. If it looks the part, you can treat it as the part. So that was like the overarching question, and it's something that I think we're gonna have to grapple with as these systems start to become more impressive.
Absolutely. And so let's say that that is one of the projects that you actually got, let's say, proud of, as you said, even though you have many that you're proud of. I was wondering more from the technical side, because one of the things that you do very, very well is, let's say, combining that storytelling with that um, technical element, being, for example, VR or augmented reality, AI. So, what was the one that challenged you the most technically?
I think all of them. I think mixed reality has been the one that's. Oh wait, so technically, when it comes to building, or when it
Mhm.
comes to making a story that works, when it comes to
More,
building,
more
ugh.
build. Yeah.
Oh man, I mean, definitely Pillow, definitely the app that I made. Like the difference between making a prototype to make a video about and making a full-fledged product is huge. Like the last 20%, takes 80% of the time. So I'm definitely Pillow. And that's one of the reasons I started doing videos is that I just wanted to chill out and do a bunch of ideas and not have to worry about shipping them because that completely changes how you approach everything. Um, it's more of a hackathon mindset, but when you're shipping things, ugh, you have to actually put in like a lot of work all the time. So definitely really the products I released, yeah, like Pillow.
And I think that actually, I mean, we are certainly going to talk about that because there is a lot of that people can learn from it, from the experience. I just wanted to, before we go in there, ask you another question, because the point is that I've always been fascinated how you combine a bit this emerging tech and art, right? It is this art, storytelling, emerging tech. And what inspires you to do it? How do you come up with that idea?
To me, like stories is how I make people care about things and um, create technology that tells a really good story. so people can be invested in it and they can care about it, and they can connect with it. And so I think it's just been that, part of the challenge is just, especially in the early days of VR and AR, you're doing something that no one understands and that no one knows what you're talking about. But if, and you can talk about headsets all day, you can explain to them real-time tracking, you can explain to them everything that's happening, they're not going to care. But if you're able to create something cool and tell a really good story around it, they will want to know more. They will want to connect, and they will be invested. So I've also always wanted to be a filmmaker. So it's really just a combination of, technology and storytelling. But also, I think one of the things I learned in the last couple of years is that technical skill does not matter nearly as much as having a unique perspective. So if you only know how to build things a little bit, but you have a really unique take, you can do things that people care about a lot more than if you had all the technical skill but no perspective, right? So
but what would you mean is
combination of these things.
Your take, when you mentioned to have a unique take, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, it's if you're able to approach the medium that you're targeting from like a really unique angle, from a way that other people aren't doing, even if the project is technically simple, you can do things that are really impactful. So that's something I learned when I was doing a lot of hackathons, when I was learning how to code. For a while, I would just do projects for the judges, projects that I was like, this is what these people want to see. And I would win a lot of hackathons, but the projects would be generic and boring. Outside the hackathon, no one would care about them. But then one day I stopped and I just started building the things that I was the most passionate about and that I thought were the most unique, and the things that were the most me, right? The things that, if you were not in the world, they would not exist. I think that's a good metric for having projects that are a unique perspective. And when I started doing that, I started losing hackathons, but I started to make some of my best work. So I think, that's one of the things that really drives me is what are the things I can build that if I don't do it, no one else will.
I think there's also now one thing I was, now that you just mentioned, curious about the whole hacking world, right? When you go to a hackathon and then you try to impress the judges, and not everybody does it for that reason, of course, right? So I think everybody has its own drives. In your case, what advice would you give to people that are approaching these events? And because it seems like it's a trade-off, or you build something for the jury, or you build something that has maybe some more potential to live and exist outside. Is that necessarily a trade-off?
By the way, I wasn't trying to impress judges. So I was not actually allowed to work in the United States at the time, and I needed money. But hackathon prizes were gifts, and I could actually make a living off of winning hackathons, which was weird. It was a strange loophole. So that was funny. But you were talking about the trade-offs. I'm sorry. Do you mind repeating the question? I just had to add that in because I think it's funny.
No, absolutely no. I don't think you are 100% right. So my point is, it sounded like it's a choice. If you build something for yourself or you build something for the judges, and how do you balance that? And what is your advice to people?
I mean, you're going to have to balance that out forever, right? I mean, because it's building something. It needs to be a balance between building something for yourself and building something for the audience that you're targeting. If you go too far up your own butt, you can do something that you love, but that no one else understands. So that's the line that we have to tread all the time, and especially now that we released Pillow on the Quest Store. Now I have to do something that I want to make, but also that Meta wants to be on the store, and also that people want. And having to balance all these three, it does affect your original vision. It does change, honestly, everything. So I think the more, when it comes to launching things, you have to balance those things more and more. When it comes to fun side projects, not really. Then my only concern is doing something that I find fun and doing something that the audience is going to like. And the biggest litmus test for that is just, can you take a project and reduce it into a single sentence and then tell a stranger on a bar, and what is their reaction? if you're able to summarize a project into a sentence, and every time you tell it to someone, they raise their eyebrows, then you're like, cool, I have something. If you don't, you don't. Yeah.
So you need to tell me in a second what was the sentence for pillow. But before that, there was another thing that I wanted to ask you, and that is, how much time do you spend actually packaging the presentation of these projects? Because the point is that I think that there are a lot of talented developers that create incredible things technically, but that sometimes they have a hard time presenting it and telling a story, either with videos, either with like some shorts, or even visually. So I wonder how much of your effort goes into the packaging and the communication of the work that you have done.
So with Pillow, not that much actually. I'm only starting to doing videos on it now. So I was been pretty much just crunching in development mode, and now that the product is in a sort of stable state, I'm doing a lot of marketing on it. But it definitely takes effort. It's especially for like one person teams. It's you pretty much have to stop developing to do videos and market, and that can be something that it can help your game with traction, you can help your app with traction, but it can also slow down the development to a crawl. So it's tough, and it's tough for me because I have really high standards. I edit the hell out of everything I make, even though everyone tells me it's a mistake. But I want it to look good. I want it to, I always want it to be something I feel proud of, because then you never regret it. If you're proud of the work, you don't regret it. um, but it's tough. Yeah, it's tough. But it's something everybody has to get used to, and especially nowadays. Otherwise, they're going to be completely dependent on, you're not going to have the ability to move people's attention yourself. You're going to have to rely on others, and that's dangerous. I mean, that's the kind of thing that kills projects.
So let's dive into this. I mean, for people that do not know, what is Pillow and how did this idea come up?
So Pillow is a mixed reality app designed for lying down in bed. It's the first app designed for that form factor, and we have a number of different relaxing experiences, from stargazing to fishing from the sky. There's lots of twists there, and to interactive bedtime stories and breathing exercises. And we're also the first app that lets two people share a bed together virtually. So it was really all about taking the medium and approaching it in a completely unique way. Meta recently in the OS added a lying down mode that was in large part also inspired by our work. This is something we've been pushing for a long time. And yeah, lying down in bed with shared bed multiplayer, basically.
So shared bed multiplayer can be taken in many different directions, right? But besides that,
Yes.
so I think let's start approaching this, because being a first, right, a first app that approached this form factor, how was it to design it, and what have you learned from that?
Yeah, so I love it when everyone has a consensus that something can't be done or is a bad idea for some reason, and then proving it wrong. That's like kind of like a common thread with the products I launch. And in the case of lying down in bed, people are on board with it now, but 2 years ago they were not. No, everybody would bring up the same kind of issues. Um, like raising your arms is going to hurt, but then you don't have to. You don't have to make it so people are raising their arms. You can just design it so people can put their elbows down. So it's just making a list of all these problems, and just doing a lot of testing, and doing a lot of testing. And one of the things we figured out early, which Meta hasn't figured out yet, is that shifting things 90 degrees does not feel good. Your head gets too far back, like you can't look up. It's not an ideal position. The best laying down angle is actually 68 degrees. And we found out those things by just slowly iterating through everything. So it's really, yeah, it's we're changing the context. We're changing the rules on how we interact with the whole thing, and just bit by bit try to raise questions and discover answers through testing. It's very punishing doing innovative work. I see why innovative things don't get made. I understand it now. Is I mean, because even like the Meta, when Meta released their lying down update, it breaks our app, which is the only lying down app. So there's a lot of things like that. So it's hard, but I think it's really challenging, and I think it's always gratifying when it's actually impacting the medium you're in, because that's the kind of thing I want to do. It's like projects that if I didn't do it, no one else would, and projects that actually add more language to the space. And I think Pillow is doing that pretty well.
So you have moved from working on your own projects, working with other companies, and then moved into building your own app, right? And being very demanding and challenging things, because as you mentioned, it's shipping a product that has to work reliably. It's not a prototype that instead you build for yourself. So why you personally made that shift?
Oh, because I mean, it's when you make stuff online for a while, especially when it started to work, there was just that feeling of like, okay, what now? And I started to get a little bit tired of just building these prototypes and people not being able to try them, pretty much. So I wanted to scratch that itch. I wanted to, build something that could actually affect people's lives, but also just like the industry was stale. It was boring. It seems like a lot of the great people left VR and AR in like 2017, because then you had like all these brilliant game designers that were like moving into VR when they thought it was going to be the hottest thing. Then it's financial flops, relatively speaking, in 2017, and then they leave. And then Beat Saber worked, and Arizona Sunshine worked, and then all the games after were just imitations of the things that have worked, right? No one was doing things that were like inherently innovative and inherently unique and that pushed the medium in a new direction. So I was just bored of VR and AR, and I feel like it has no right to be boring. You can make matter out of thin air, it has no right to be boring, but it was. So I showed up and I made a thing that I think is not boring, and it's flawed, but it's pretty unique, and we're going to keep growing it.
I wouldn't say it's flawed, and I also have to say there is another thing that I think it's really the uniqueness, and people. I mean, the one I prefer is the fishing experience, because when you are in bed, okay, you are there, you are fishing, there is this gamified thing, but then it's much deeper, right? Because what you get is also building up on another prototype that you have built before, right? Can I share it, Lucas, or you want to go ahead and explain how that works? I just wanted to have a quick break to remind you that the recording of these episodes and many more great conversation with incredible experts are available on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. Just head over to my profile or in the episode description below and pick the platform you prefer. And now, let's get back to the show.
Oh yeah, we can talk about the fishing experience. Is that okay?
Yes, of course. I mean, up to you. I would tell what
Cool.
was my
Yeah. So that's the thing, right? Because we're approaching laying down in XR. It's a completely different UX paradigm, completely different way to relate with people and user behavior. So we were debating like on what we wanted to do, and for starters, we just created 4 different experiences that offered 4 different kinds of lying down modalities. So we could really learn from these and find out what people gravitate to the most. And now the fishing experience is one you can fish from your ceiling, but the twist is that every fish is a voice message left by another player. So you're actually fishing for connection. You're fishing for responses left by other users. And every day we would give you a different prompt. So it's a pond that's like evolving in subjects and scope. And you, at the end of each session, you can grab a little fish egg, record your own voice message, and throw it in the pond for other people to find. And that's been the experience that people have responded to the most. And I think it's not only unique when it comes to the way it approaches social, but it's asynchronous social interactions, which are completely gone from XR, which is a huge travesty. Because when you look at the internet, I mean, this is a synchronous communication method, right? This is live, what we're talking to each other live. But almost all of our internet usage, email, Facebook, LinkedIn, it's all asynchronous content, right? Somebody sends you something and you can consume it whenever it makes sense to you, which is a layer of convenience that is deeply absent from the entire metaverse. So it's always confused me how we have one of these pieces of information about how the internet works and how the internet works well, and we're just completely ignoring it. So I have to make a weird phishing game that basically shows what a commenting system in XR looks like, and I have to build a fish social network to prove that point. Um, but yeah, it's also deeply emotional. People get to connect in a way that's really meaningful. It's perfect for the bed, but the asynchronous stuff is just something I don't see anyone talking about.
And
So
honestly, I've never
have
thought
to
about
bring
it
it up.
that way. I've never thought about it that way. I was like, okay, you leave a message, but now that you're mentioning it is a synchronous system that is similar to what we use in, I mean, it's a bit like a billboard in a way, right? In some form. And maybe one follow-up questions, because like, do you do any moderation on this? Because everybody could say anything. Is there any form of control of what people get exposed to?
Yeah, LLMs have been amazing for this because we can transcribe um, all the messages that people say, run it through, GPT-4, and be able to screen it basically in that way. So that's been great because usually in the past, when I've done projects that are kind of similar, we had to do a lot of manual moderation, but now it's been successfully fully automated, which is great. And the fact that GPT-4 is so anal about saying the wrong thing actually makes it perfect for to be sort of, a moderation layer. So it's been working automatically and it's fantastic. And that's one of the benefits of asynchronous systems. You can actually add moderation layers, but when you're live with someone, if someone's being toxic to you, you can't
Fair,
stop them. You can stop them a
fair,
little
fair,
bit later, but
fair point.
not in the moment. Yeah.
And since you brought up this AI topic, I was curious. It looks like you have used AI in other part of Pillow. Am I correct?
Yes, I'm doing a couple of videos about it. There's many areas where AI has touched the project, and every time we used AI, it was to enable us to do something that will be literally impossible by humans. So we
Tell
don't
us.
definitely don't
You need
look.
to tell
Yeah,
us.
exactly. We don't look at it as a way to like cheapen labor. It's more of like, okay, now that we have this, what are the things we can do that we wouldn't be able to do? Like that's what we like literally impossible. One of them is like, for a stargazing app, it's like, oh shit, we can create a system that actually allows us to write out information about every single star in the sky and potentially the universe. And that's something that would take what, thousands of writers, several years. It's like literally you can't do it. But in fishing, we're using AI for the moderation and our interactive bedtime stories. They are, we built like a huge story engine, spend a lot of time working on it, but a lot of the content there is also AI generated. Um, and a lot of the voices in the app are also like a voice model that we created of my sister. So, because again, we have like literally hundreds of hours of audio that we have to record, and actually thousands by now, which possible in a studio setting, but we can do it now. So it's got a lot of AI in it, but I think in a way that's like productive and interesting. And I hope that this is how people look at AI. I mean, that's not how they're going to look at it. And most people are going to look at it as an opportunity to dominate and destroy. And social media, I think, is going to be ruined in the next couple of years. But
Oh
that's
my
another
God.
topic.
What? I mean, at this point, I'm curious. So, why you're saying social media is going to be destroyed by AI? I mean, I have my own opinion on that, but I'm curious about yours.
When it comes to platforms like, so here's the thing, the market's already saturated, right? There's already we already make way more content that like the whole planet will be able to consume in like hundreds of lifetimes. So it's I forget the exact numbers, the number of trillions of hours of content we consume per year. Um, we're reaching a gap, like a limit. There's only so many hours people have available to watch stuff. And the amount of content we're making is already like super saturated. And now AI is going to get in the mix and make a bunch of stuff. And the amount of content is going to be become astronomical, but the number of people in the world is not changing that much. The number of hours in the day is not changing that much. So I think we're reaching the limits of like people's attention, the people that are on the internet so far. And now we're going to have this flood of highly engineered content that's designed, that can keep up with the algorithm. And it's designed to keep people engaged. And I think independent creators are going to have a really hard time competing, especially because AI is amazing at making generic stuff that's good, especially now with Sora. And most content creators make stuff that's kind of generic. So I think it's going to be a problem, and it's going to be really hard to be a content creator in the next couple of years. And I think streaming services are actually going to become relevant again because of it. And I think we're going to start to see this distinction in the next couple of years of like the internet platforms, which are not bound by any of the laws of the strike, by the way. They can just do whatever. That's where you see a bunch of cheap content, and streaming services where you get to see human art. So I think that's something that's going to happen, and it's worrying. Yeah, which is kind of like why I'm pushing to doing a TV show again.
I think this idea of the streaming is actually a very valid point. Like the live, it's gonna certainly have more perceived value. I wonder though if people also will, being so saturated, will also start saying, okay, this is AI generated. No. Now the question remains: I expect and I hope that when I'm seeing something, I would be able to flag if something is AI generated or not, but not because it's the right thing to do, because there should be a way to say, okay, this is AI generated. It could be amazing, and if you want, you can watch it, but there should be a way for people to understand that that is not created by a human.
Yeah, but no, that's the thing. Everybody likes to think they can see it, but once it's really good, you can't anymore. And it's been happening for a long time. I mean, AI is already has been controlling human culture for a while. The algorithms, that's what they are. It's literally AI systems deciding what gets seen and what doesn't. So AI has already been deciding what works and what doesn't for a while. Now it's just going to be making stuff as well. So it's going to be deciding what goes on, and it's going to be making stuff. And that's, and we're going to get caught in the middle of those. But it, like, so many of the most viral like songs used in videos on TikTok are AI generated, and people don't notice. There's a huge flood of educational channels on YouTube Shorts that people are watching, and they don't really notice until like you have to really look into it. And so it's for long form content, maybe that's a little bit trickier. But for short form, it happens so fast. It's over so fast that you've watched it. It's over. And yeah, you noticed it, but now the 40 seconds are gone and you've already helped it. So
it's a good point.
I think it's going to be much more sneakier than people think.
So to go back to stay away from doom scenario and going back to Pillow and helping people building a great mixed reality experience, I'm curious, you recently shared a tweet with some of, let's say, 10 learnings that you have got from your process of building Pillow. Now, you don't need to remember all of them, but maybe what are some of the key tips that you could give to people that are building mixed reality experiences?
Oh, I remember them. These are scars. These are scars, man. People will break everything. Mixed reality is phenomenally difficult, mostly because, the sheer amount of different play spaces that people are going to play your stuff in that are totally unexpected. We do lying down in Pillow. Some people are now playing in a bunk bed. Some people have slanted ceilings like this one. Some people are playing in a warehouse or in a small Hong Kong apartment. You have to design experiences that work for all of these scenarios, and that's its own challenge. But then people are going to start doing really weird stuff, and weird stuff that really negatively affects your product. So we were noticing, like, when we launched, all of our average ratings were like 4.8 stars. And then in January, there was an update, and like the SDK update, and then all of a sudden the average rating of the new ratings was 3.0, which was like, whoa. And these are all like silent ratings. People are not telling us what's happening. And then essentially we found out that what was happening with a large number of users is that they would put their headset on in the living room, realize they're playing pillow, walk into their bedroom, and then think the app is not working. When it was, they just left it in the living room, which we didn't account for. We thought everybody, we always tested the app in the bedroom. We would get in there before, but turns out that was affecting literally hundreds of people. And we it took us weeks to find out because we had to find those edge cases. And there's a lot of those. It's people are going to use your app outside, and if it uses controllers, it breaks. If it uses hands, it doesn't. People will refuse to scan their room, no matter how important it is. They will not do it. So we need fallbacks for that, and just a lot of stuff like this. And it's stuff that's been, I always knew that mixed reality quality assurance was going to be a nightmare. And I was very curious on how headset companies were going to treat this. If they were going to treat it with, like, I guess, the wisdom I had of, like, because I started developing with the HoloLens. That was my first device. I started with mixed reality, not VR. And I was waiting to see how big companies were going to deal with it, and they don't know how to deal with it yet. All QA companies, they test it in one room. It's a square room. It's like the perfect room, and nowhere else. When the most valuable insights come from testing in a diversity of spaces. So yeah, that's one of those things. Mixed reality is incredibly difficult, but in a way that's sneaky. It doesn't show up. It doesn't show up in your home. It doesn't show up when you're testing with friends. It only shows up when you have tens of thousands of users playing in tens of thousands of homes. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I did pillow lying down, because I wanted to reduce the amount of variables for mixed reality, because it makes it easier. But if you're trying to do like a platformer in mixed reality where you get to move a character around furniture, that's a hard project. That's a hard project. Yeah.
That's a very interesting point, because I was also hoping to see more content for mixed reality over the past months and, let's say, years since Quest Pro got released. And it's like, okay, now we got an actually pretty usable mixed reality footage and feed. But instead, it isn't. And maybe this is also the point. The point is that it is so hard to create something that automatically adapts to your environment. And this brings me also to the point, like, what are the ways to feed this information and to help developers learn from it, even trying to troubleshoot and diagnose this is something going wrong? Because if you mention it took you quite some time to figure this out, that has consequences. I mean, the rating of your app went down, and when there is no way to track who left that 1 star, basically you are basically screwed. So it's very hard to recover.
Yeah, but we did. It's back to 4.8 average now that we fixed all these issues. Yeah, but then you still have to keep up with the reason this became a problem is that there was an update to the SDK that changed also how anchors worked. I don't know, but there's always this constant state of tension as well that the next meta update could break your app. So you have to really stay vigilant and do multiple rounds of testing all the time. And but it's part of the challenge. It's just one of those things that, I mentioned before, you do feel like you get punished for doing innovative work. And I'm starting to like make peace with this as well, that it's just part of the process. Yeah.
The other thing that I wanted to mention, and I think it's remarkable, is the fact that you have let's say, reimagine the Quest 2 experience as well, right? Because the point is that on Quest 2, of course, you have this great pass-through, the quality is much lower, and I've seen some footage where it actually looks very nice, and I would say even more magical to some extent than what is the Quest 3 experience. I mean, how was the process, and did it also somehow pay off? Have you heard feedback from users?
I've gotten some feedback. Yeah, it's been great. So like most Quest 3 developers, I mean, we were looking at the stats of Pillow, and we were realizing that the majority of users were Quest 3 users, which kind of makes sense, but it also feels like a missed opportunity because there's over 20 million Quest 2 headsets out there. So it's like, what can we do to make the Quest 2 be just as compelling as the Quest 3 version? So I took a very just like hard look at what we could do and what we could jerry rig. We took some things in the Meta SDK that were designed for completely other things that were like related to performance, and I kind of like built a system on top of it that would let us have really fine control over the color of the pass through. So now if you're fishing and the pond above you is like, let's say, a shade of pink, it creates like a nice pink hue around your pass through. We got rid of the black and white basically, and we made your pass through feel really dynamic and to really feel like cohesive with what's happening in front of you. And that one small thing allowed us to abandon black and white and create something that looks really great on the Quest 2. And it's like night and day. I can't go back. But there's still, now there's still the preconception that everybody has the Quest 2 is black and white. And it's until more developers do it, that's going to be how people are going to treat it. That's how people are going to look at it. And that's how you're going to end up with Quest 2 users not buying mixed reality apps because they think they're going to be treated as second-class citizens. But it doesn't take a lot of work. And it really, I think it's important. It's a lot of people that could be getting your niche mixed reality thing.
Absolutely. And it's not just it's also for you, because that is automatic return on investment, right? Those are all sales that you could make on all the headsets that have been already on the market. Now, I do have opposite side of the spectrum questions. What is your take on Vision Pro instead? We'll talk about readapting content for a Quest 2. And what about Vision Pro, both from Pillow and from a creator perspective?
From a consumer perspective, it's like the best TV in the world. And that's where I draw the line, basically. Everything else is experimental. But it's the best TV in the world. It's really fascinating. I've actually been using it a lot. For porting it over, I mean, we are porting right now. We're working on getting the most popular experience in Pillow and putting it on the platform. Mm-hmm. So the investment, like, it's really like not worth it financially to I'd say to develop stuff for the Vision Pro. 3D apps, right? Most people, they just click on a checkbox and and their app works magically on the Vision Pro. But I think that the economics of it don't make sense right now. It's just a number of headsets out there, and I have no idea what the retention numbers are now. But we're going to give it a shot. We're making like a measured step into it to see what it's like. And we're going to take it as an opportunity to also play with like different business models, because people usually with the Apple Vision Pro are usually more open to like different things. I mean, that's not what we're doing necessarily, but they're more open to subscriptions, to other modes, into other transactions that are actually sustainable for developers. The Quest is so gamer focused that it's like, even if you try to do a subscription service, it gets tons of hate, even when it's like, dude, we can't afford to make this otherwise. So I think it's an exciting device. It's a cool to see Apple be committed to the space. I think it's validating. I don't think the economics make sense to release an app there right now. We're going to do it because we like it, and maybe I'm wrong, but I wouldn't. I look at it as an experimental device. It's really like, when it comes to the TV use case, it's perfect. It's an amazing smart TV. When it comes to an XR device, it feels like a dev kit. Yeah.
I think there is a lot to say and to explore even from developers, because indeed a lot of what people are doing or experimenting with at the initial is just creating this all panels, or in the best way scenarios, these volumes that are these things that are completely enclosed in their own world, right? So they do not talk or connect with the environment around the users, and that is the magic, right? When I can open my ceiling to see the sky, that's the moment that get magical. When I see indeed the ripples of the water on the walls, that's when it gets magical. So I think that there is indeed a lot of opportunities there for improvement. But indeed, you brought up a good point. The exploration of different business model is something that is totally true. I've seen people spending more easily spending or purchasing an app for $5, $10 to know and understand what it is than it would be for a Quest, for an app that is on Quest. That is for sure. Look, I wanna I'm curious while we wrap this up, and I would like to know what is next for you. Are you 100% focused on Pillow, or there are some other things that maybe we should know about?
Oh yeah, Pillow is definitely my day job. It's what I spend most of my time on. I've always loved doing side projects and having hobbies. So
Clearly.
I'm still good. I'm still going to be posting, side projects every now and then just to keep things interesting. But I'm posting a lot of. I'm kind of like making a little reality show out of building Pillow. I'm posting my second video right now on LinkedIn, like right after this. But we're basically documenting the entire creation process, but also the most interesting and bizarre and funniest parts of it, which people don't get to see, and just doing tons of videos about it. So, yeah, I'm doing a lot of side projects, a lot of communicating Pillow to the world and showing the craziness of building things like this. And those seem to be the main things. I'm also doing stand-up. I'm working on a 1 hour act because I love interacting with audiences in the flesh. It's great.
For real.
It's so much better than social media. Yeah. So yeah, doing lots of cool stuff for Pillow. Continue to push the boundaries there. Doing lots of videos about Pillow. Doing lots of videos about side projects. And highly recommend you get it. It's in the Quest store.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So for people to stay updated and to keep learning from your journey and what you have done, where should people follow you? You mentioned LinkedIn. What else?
LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, whatever strikes your fancy. My name is Lucas Rizzotto. 2 Z's, 2 T's. You see it in the post. And yeah, I've also started doing like advisory gigs because I'm seeing like, especially when it comes to this space, there's apparently there's a lot of knowledge in my head that people need. So I'd love to help out. I think I'm starting to help out companies more and more because it seems like even with a couple of conversations, we can save them like sometimes like a year of development mistakes. And it's just because I've been through them before. And yeah, mixed reality is cool, but it's dangerous. It's dangerous. And it won't be until we have like really deep AI systems in it that can, let us design things in a way that are cross-compatible with every room in the planet.
Lucas, thank you very much. I think it was a great conversation, and I think that everybody that stayed with us up to now certainly got a lot of this knowledge that you have and learned from the scars that you are carrying in a way. So, Lucas, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, of course. It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Thank you very much for listening in. If you enjoyed the conversation, remember to head to YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts for more insightful conversation revolving around XR and AI. And if you like the show, please leave a rating on Spotify. It really helps me keep doing this and shine the spotlights on the latest and greatest founders and creative in XR and AI. Till next time.